They say pride comes before the fall, but for Tracy Sterling, it wasn't just a fall. It was a demolition. Imagine sitting in a crowded steakhouse, laughing with your friends, betting 50 grand that your pregnant wife, the woman you just kicked out into the rain, would be crawling back to your doorstep by midnight. He told the waiter, "She has nowhere else to go." He was wrong. Dead wrong. Because while Tracy was ordering another round of scotch to celebrate his freedom, a Gulfstream G650 was already warming up its engines on a private tarmac, and the man waiting inside that jet wasn't just a billionaire. He was the one man Tracy feared most. This is the story of how a cruel boast turned into the most expensive mistake of a lifetime. Buckle up. The rain in Seattle doesn't wash things clean. It just makes the dirt stick harder. Maddie Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse at the pinnacle of the Sterling Tower. It was a view that cost $5 million, looking down on the ants of the city. But tonight, Maddie felt like one of the ants. She rested a hand on her stomach. 4 months. Just enough to show a curve beneath her silk blouse, a curve that her husband, Tracy Sterling, had stopped looking at weeks ago. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the vast, minimalist living room. It was the sound of a man who owned the world and hated coming home to it. Tracy walked in, shaking off a bespoke Burberry trench coat. He didn't hang it up. He dropped it on the floor for the housekeeper Maria to pick up in the morning. He was handsome in that sharp, predatory way, jawline like a cliff edge, eyes like cold coins. He smelled of single malt scotch and a perfume that wasn't Maddie's. "You're still up?" Tracy said, loosening his tie. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I made dinner," Maddie said softly, gesturing to the cold risotto on the marble island. "It's your favorite. Truffle and mushroom." Tracy laughed, a dry, barking sound. He walked past the food without a glance and poured himself a drink from the crystal decanter. "I ate. I had business with the partners at the Capitol Grill." Maddie knew the partners included Jessica Vane, the 24-year-old marketing director Tracy had hired 3 months ago. Coincidentally, the same week Maddie had announced her pregnancy. "Tracy, we need to talk," Maddie said, her voice trembling slightly. "The doctor said my blood pressure is up. I need less stress. I need us to be us again." Tracy took a slow sip of his drink, turning to face her. His expression was bored. "Us? Maddie, look at you. You're emotional. You're clingy. It's suffocating. I'm pregnant with your son, Tracy. And you're acting like a martyr about it," he snapped, the veneer of civility cracking. "Do you think you're the first woman to have a baby? My mother had 4 and ran a foundation. You sit here in this penthouse I paid for, wearing clothes I bought, complaining about stress. I worked for 5 years to help build your company," Maddie whispered, the hurt flaring into anger. "I designed the initial branding. I pulled all-nighters with you when we couldn't afford rent." "That was a long time ago," Tracy dismissed, waving his hand as if swatting a fly. "Now you're just weight. Dead weight." He set the glass down hard. "I'm done, Maddie." The silence that followed was louder than the thunder outside. Maddie blinked, sure she had misheard. "You're tired. Let's go to bed." "No," Tracy said, his voice terrifyingly calm. I'm done. With this." He gestured between them. "I spoke to the lawyers this morning. The papers are on the desk in the study. I want you out." Maddie felt the blood drain from her face. "Out? Tracy, I'm pregnant. It's pouring rain. Where am I supposed to go?" Tracy shrugged, checking his Rolex. "That's not really my problem, is it? You've got parents in... Where is it? Idaho? Go live on the farm, but you're not staying here. I'm remodeling the nursery. Jessica thinks it would make a better home gym. The name hung in the air like toxic smoke. Jessica, you're kicking your pregnant wife out for a marketing assistant, Maddie asked, her voice gaining a strange, steel edge she didn't know she possessed. She understands my vision, Tracy sneered, and she doesn't look like a whale in a sundress. He walked over to his wallet, pulled out a stack of cash, hundreds, and threw them on the marble counter. They scattered like confetti. Take a cab. Get a hotel. I don't care. Just be gone by the time I get back from my morning run tomorrow. If you're not, I'll have security remove you. And Maddie, don't try to fight the prenup. My lawyers made sure you get nothing if you leave. And since I'm technically the one asking you to leave for irreconcilable differences caused by your erratic behavior, well, good luck. Maddie looked at the money. Then she looked at the man she had loved for 7 years, the man she had thought was her partner. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. A strange coldness settled over her, freezing the tears before they could fall. She realized then that the Tracy she loved didn't exist. He had died the moment money became his god. Okay, Maddie said. Tracy blinked, surprised by her lack of fight. He had expected begging. He wanted begging. It made him feel powerful. Okay, he repeated. I'll leave, she said. She turned and walked toward the bedroom. Take what you can carry, Tracy called after her, taking another sip of scotch. I don't want you coming back for boxes later. 20 minutes later, Maddie walked out of the bedroom. She was wearing a heavy coat, sensible boots, and carrying a single duffel bag. She walked past the money on the counter without touching it. You're leaving the cash? Tracy scoffed from the couch, where he was already texting on his phone. Don't be a hero, Maddie. You'll need it for diapers. Maddie paused at the heavy oak door. She didn't look back. Keep it, Tracy, she said softly. You're going to need every penny for the lawyers. She shut the door. Tracy laughed into the empty room. He typed a message to his group chat with his finance buddies. Done. She's out. Told you she'd fold. Betting she's back, begging at the lobby desk within 4 hours. Who's in? The rain was torrential. Maddie stood under the awning of the Sterling Tower, shivering. She had lied to herself. She didn't have a plan. She had her debit card. But she knew Tracy. He was petty. He had likely already frozen the joint accounts. She tried the card at the ATM across the street. Transaction declined. Of course, she whispered, leaning her forehead against the cold metal of the machine. She checked her own personal savings account on her phone. It had $400 in it. Tracy had insisted she stop working 2 years ago to focus on supporting him, and she had foolishly drained her savings on IVF treatments when they were trying to conceive. The very child he was now rejecting. She hailed a cab. The driver, a gruff man with a Seahawks cap, looked her up and down. Where to, lady? The Motel 6 on Aurora, she said. It was the cheapest place she knew. The ride was a blur of neon lights and tears she finally let fall. When she checked into the room, it smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. She sat on the lumpy mattress, her hand instinctively protecting her stomach. We're going to be okay, baby, she whispered to the empty room. I don't know how, but we will. She pulled out her phone. She had missed calls from her mother in Idaho, but she couldn't bear to tell her yet. Her mother was frail. The news would break her heart. She scrolled through her contacts. Who could she call? The friends she had made in Tracy's circle were sharks. If she called them, the gossip would reach Tracy before she hung up. They would laugh at her. Her thumb hovered over a name she hadn't dialed in 5 years. Sebastian. Sebastian Laurent. Before Tracy became a tech mogul, before the money, there was a summer in the Hamptons. Maddie was working as a waitress to pay for design school. Sebastian was the heir to the Laurent shipping dynasty. Old money, French-American, the kind of wealth that whispered rather than shouted. They had been friends, best friends, bordering on something more, until Tracy had swept in with his flashy ambition and convinced Maddie that Sebastian was just a bored rich kid toying with her. Maddie had chosen the self-made man over the heir. She had cut Sebastian off because Tracy was jealous. She hadn't spoken to him since the day she got engaged to Tracy. It was 2:15 a.m. "He won't answer," she muttered. "He's probably in Monaco or sleeping." But desperation makes you do crazy things. She pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. "Madeline?" The voice was instant, clear and deep. He wasn't asleep. He sounded as if he had been waiting for the phone to ring for 5 years. Maddie choked on a sob. Hearing her name spoken with actual gentleness broke the dam. "Sebastian? What's wrong?" The shift in his tone was immediate, sharp, alert. "Where are you?" I messed up, Sebastian. I messed up everything." "Maddie, breathe. Are you hurt?" "No. Yes, I don't know. He threw me out, Sebastian. Tracy, he threw me out. I'm at a motel on Aurora. I don't have anywhere to go." There was a silence on the other end of the line. Not a hesitant silence, but a calculating one. Maddie could hear movement in the background, the rustle of fabric, the sound of a heavy door opening. "Aurora Avenue in Seattle?" Sebastian asked. "Yes. Room 104. Stay there. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me." "Sebastian, you're in Paris, aren't you? Your Instagram said—" "I was in Paris this morning," he cut in. "I landed in Seattle 3 hours ago for a board meeting tomorrow, or rather, a meeting I was going to attend. You're here? I'm 20 minutes away. Stay put." "Sebastian, I look like a mess. I'm pregnant. I have nothing." "You have me," he said, his voice dropping an octave, fierce and final. 20 minutes, Maddie." The line went dead. Maddie stared at the phone. She went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. She looked in the mirror, eyes red and puffy, hair wet from the rain, no makeup. She looked like a woman whose life had exploded. Exactly 19 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Not the tentative knock of room service, but 3 solid, authoritative raps. Maddie peeked through the peephole. Standing in the dingy hallway of the Motel 6, wearing a charcoal wool coat that probably cost more than the entire building, was Sebastian Laurent. He looked older than she remembered, broader shoulders, a neatly trimmed beard, and eyes that were storm grey and currently burning with a quiet fury. She opened the door. Sebastian didn't say a word. He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room instantly. The peeling wallpaper, the sad bedspread, the duffel bag on the floor. His jaw tightened so hard, a muscle feathered in his cheek. He looked at Maddie. His gaze softened instantly as it traveled down to her baby bump, then back up to her tear-stained eyes. "I told you he was a mistake," Sebastian said softly. "It wasn't an 'I told you so.' It was a lament." "I know." Maddie wept. Sebastian closed the distance between them in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. He smelled of sandalwood and rain, a clean, safe scent. He held her as if she were made of glass, but securely enough that she knew she wouldn't fall. "I have a car outside," he murmured into her hair. "We're leaving." "Where?" Maddie asked, pulling back to look at him. "I can't go to your hotel, Sebastian. The press. If they see Tracy Sterling's wife with Sebastian Laurent." Sebastian wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Let me worry about the press. And let me worry about Tracy." He picked up her duffel bag as if it weighed nothing. "We aren't going to a hotel, Maddie. My jet is at Boeing Field. It's fueled and waiting. Jet, where are we going? Sebastian opened the door and held it for her, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. Paris, he said. The best doctors in Europe are there. My family's estate is private, gated, and impenetrable. You need rest. You need peace. And frankly, I need to get you as far away from that bastard as physically possible before I do something that puts me in prison. But Paris? Now? Right now, Sebastian said, unless you want to wait for Tracy to realize you didn't crawl back. The memory of Tracy's laugh, his bet, his cruelty flashed through her mind. She'll crawl back. Maddie straightened her spine. She placed a hand on her stomach. Let's go, she said. The interior of the Gulfstream G650 OR was quieter than a library and warmer than a womb. It was a stark, jarring contrast to the neon-lit motel room Maddie had been shivering in less than an hour ago. The cabin was upholstered in cream leather and polished walnut, smelling of fresh espresso and expensive cleaning agents. Maddie sat in one of the oversized captain's chairs, wrapped in a cashmere blanket that Sebastian had personally tucked around her. Her hands were still shaking. Sebastian sat across from her, not too close, but close enough to reach her if she fell. He had discarded his coat and was pouring tea from a silver service set. Not alcohol. Tea. Chamomile. Drink, he said gently, sliding the cup across the burl wood table. It will help the shock. Maddie wrapped her cold fingers around the warm porcelain. I feel like I'm hallucinating. 1 minute I was looking at a water stain on the ceiling, and now... She looked out the window. The lights of Seattle were falling away as the jet climbed steeply into the pitch-black sky. You're safe, Sebastian said. His voice was steady, an anchor in the storm. I've instructed the pilot to take the polar route. We'll be in Paris in 9 hours. My staff at the estate in Neuilly-sur-Seine are already prepping the guest wing. It faces the garden. It's quiet. Maddie took a sip of the tea. It was hot and soothing. Tears pricked her eyes again. Why are you doing this, Sebastian? After how I left things, I didn't call you for 5 years. I chose him. Sebastian looked down at his hands. He was twisting a signet ring on his pinky finger, a family heirloom. When he looked up, his grey eyes were unguarded for the first time. You chose what you thought was a future, Sebastian said. Tracy is persuasive. He sells dreams. That's how he built his company. He sold you a dream, Maddie. I don't blame you for buying it. He bet on me, Maddie whispered, the shame burning her cheeks. He told his friends I'd crawl back. He bet $50,000. Sebastian's expression darkened, a flash of something dangerous passing over his face. He's a fool. He treats people like assets. Assets depreciate. He doesn't understand that some things are invaluable. He leaned forward. I never married Maddie. Maddie blinked, surprised. I saw magazines. You were dating that model. The Italian one. Distractions, Sebastian said dismissively. It never worked. Do you know why? Maddie shook her head. Because none of them were the girl who laughed at me for not knowing how to pump my own gas in the Hamptons. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I kept tabs on you, Maddie. I knew you were unhappy. I saw the photos from the galas. The smile didn't reach your eyes anymore. I was waiting. Waiting for what? For you to realize you were worth more than a trophy on his shelf. The plane leveled off at 45,000 feet. The ride was incredibly smooth. A flight attendant, a discreet woman named Claire, appeared with a plate of fruit and warm bread. Mr. Laurent, Claire said softly. Pilot says we have a strong tailwind. We'll be ahead of schedule. Thank you, Claire. Please make sure no flight logs are publicly accessible. Block the tail number from public tracking apps. Already done, sir. Maddie watched this interaction. Tracy had always barked orders at service staff, treating them like furniture. Sebastian spoke to them by name, with respect, yet his authority was absolute. It was a different kind of power. Old power. Maddie's phone buzzed in her pocket. She jumped. She pulled it out. It was a notification from her joint bank account app. Alert. Monthly limit reached. Tracy had locked the cards remotely. He was awake, or he had set an automated restriction to humiliate her if she tried to buy breakfast. Then a text from Tracy popped up. Enjoying the rain? The offer to crawl back expires at 8 a.m. After that, I change the locks. Maddie stared at the screen. The cruelty was breathtaking. Sebastian saw her face. He gently took the phone from her hand. He read the text. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. He simply stood up, walked to the cockpit door where a specialized toolkit was kept, and returned with a small pin. He popped the SIM card slot open. He took the tiny chip out. "You don't need this," Sebastian said. He dropped the SIM card into his empty teacup. Then he poured the rest of the hot liquid over it. "He can't track you. He can't call you. He can't hurt you," Sebastian said. "I will get you a new phone, a new number, and a new life. Tonight, you sleep. For the baby." Maddie looked at the drowned chip. It felt like watching a bomb being defused. "What about the media?" she asked. "Tracy is a tech darling. If I disappear, he'll spin it. He'll say I'm crazy or unstable. He'll try to take the baby when it's born." Sebastian sat back down, crossing his legs. He looked out the window at the stars. "Let him spin," Sebastian said coldly. "Let him think he's won. Tracy is a man who fights with noise. I fight with silence and lawyers. My legal team makes his look like strip mall ambulance chasers. By the time he realizes where you are, we will have established residency in France. French custody laws are very particular about protecting the mother, especially when the father has a documented history of emotional abuse." "How do you know that?" "I told you." Sebastian looked at her, his eyes fierce. "I've been watching. I have files, Maddie. I have the receipts from the hotels he visits. I have the time stamps." Maddie gasped. "You knew he was cheating?" "I suspected. I confirmed it a week ago. I was going to bring the dossier to you personally tomorrow. Fate just moved the timeline up." Maddie slumped back into the leather seat. The exhaustion hit her like a physical blow. She was leaving a war zone she hadn't even realized she was in. "Sleep," Sebastian commanded gently. He pressed a button, and her chair reclined into a fully flat bed. He pulled the shade down. As Maddie drifted off, lulled by the hum of the engines, the last thing she saw was Sebastian Laurent sitting under the reading light, reviewing documents, guarding her like a sentinel in the sky. Seattle, 8:30 a.m. The sun was trying to break through the grey, but the city looked washed out. Inside the penthouse, the air was stale. Tracy Sterling woke up with a mouth that tasted like cotton and regret. Not regret for what he had done to Maddie, never that, but regret for mixing scotch with red wine. He rolled over. Jessica was asleep next to him, her blonde hair fanned out over the pillow Maddie had hand-embroidered 3 years ago. Tracy felt a momentary flicker of annoyance. Jessica snored. Maddie never snored. He sat up, checking his phone immediately. No new messages from Maddie. He frowned. He had expected a wall of text, apologies, begging, pleas to let her back in. He scrolled through his notifications. Nothing. "Playing hard to get," he muttered, swinging his legs out of bed. He walked into the living room, scratching his chest. The money he had thrown on the counter was still there, scattered on the marble. She really hadn't taken a dime. "Idiot," he said. He walked to the intercom system that connected to the building's lobby security. He pressed the button. "Morning, Gary," Tracy rasped. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," the doorman's voice crackled back. "Is my wife in the lobby?" There was a pause. "Mrs. Sterling?" "No, sir. I haven't seen her since she left last night." Tracy frowned. "Check the perimeter. She's probably sitting on a bench somewhere trying to make me feel guilty." "I just did a perimeter check, sir. It's clear. No sign of her." Tracy released the button. A seed of irritation planted itself in his gut. Where could she be? She had no friends in the city who would take her in against his will. He had ensured his social circle was loyal to his wallet, not his wife. The motel. He laughed. Maddie was a princess. She wouldn't last 4 hours in a motel. She was probably at a 24-hour diner, waiting for him to call. He went to the kitchen to make coffee. Jessica walked in, wearing one of his dress shirts. It looked better on Maddie, he thought involuntarily. Maddie had a grace, a way of moving. Jessica walked like she was on a runway, even in a kitchen. It was performative. "Is the ex-wife back yet?" Jessica asked, hopping onto a bar stool. "I want to measure the nursery for the gym equipment." "Not yet," Tracy said, grinding the beans. "She's stalling. Maybe she went to Idaho. With $400, she won't make it to the state line." Tracy pulled out his phone again. He opened the Find My app. We shared locations for safety, a feature he insisted on so he could track her movements while claiming it was for her protection. He tapped on Maddie's icon. "Location, not available. Last seen, 2:35 a.m., Aurora Ave N." She turned her phone off, Tracy said, slamming the device onto the counter. "Childish." "She wants you to worry," Jessica cooed, rubbing his back. "Don't give her the satisfaction. She'll turn it back on when she gets hungry." Tracy wasn't listening. He was a man who controlled data. A lack of data made him itch. "Gary," he buzzed the intercom again. "Pull the CCTV footage from the front entrance, last night, around 2:30 a.m. "One moment, Mr. Sterling." Tracy waited, tapping his fingers on the marble. "Got it, sir," Gary said. "It's odd." "What's odd?" "She didn't leave in a cab, sir." "Well, she took a cab initially, but the footage from the street cam shows a car picking her up from the Motel 6 down the road about an hour later." "What kind of car? An Uber?" "No, sir. It looks like a Maybach. S-Class. Tinted windows. Diplomatic plates, maybe? It's hard to tell in the rain." Tracy froze. A Maybach? Maddie didn't know anyone with a Maybach. The only people in Seattle with cars like that were, well, people like him, or people richer than him. "Did you get a plate number?" "No, sir, but the driver, a man, got out. He helped her with her bag." "A man?" Tracy's voice dropped. The hangover headache spiked violently. "Send the footage to my phone, now." Seconds later, the video loaded. It was grainy and dark, but the silhouette was undeniable. Maddie standing in the doorway of the motel, a sleek black car pulling up, a tall man stepping out. Tracy squinted. The man moved with confidence. He wore a long coat. He embraced Maddie, and Maddie, she melted into him. She didn't fight. She let him lead her to the car. Tracy felt a surge of possessive rage. Who was this? A lover? Had she been cheating on him? The thought was laughable. Maddie was pathetic, loyal to a fault. But the video didn't lie. He took a screenshot of the man's blurry face and sent it to his head of security, a former Mossad agent named Cohen. "Identify this man, immediately." Tracy paced the living room. Jessica's chatter about gym equipment faded into background noise. He had a sinking feeling, the kind he got right before a stock tanked. 10 minutes later, Cohen called. "Sir," Cohen's voice was tight, We ran the gait analysis and facial structure against the database of high-net-worth individuals known to be in Seattle yesterday. And? It's Sebastien Laurent. Tracy stopped pacing. The name hit him like a physical slap. Laurent? Tracy whispered. The shipping heir. The French guy. Yes, sir. His private jet, a Gigan X-50, filed a flight plan out of Boeing Field at 3:15 a.m. Destination, Le Bourget, Paris. Tracy dropped onto the sofa. The silence in the room was deafening. Sebastien Laurent. The one guy from Maddie's past she had sworn was just a friend. The one guy Tracy had always felt inferior to, because Sebastien didn't have to work for his money. He was money. She didn't crawl back, Tracy whispered, the realization dawning on him with the weight of a collapsing building. What? Jessica asked, looking up from her phone. She's gone, Tracy said, his eyes staring at nothing. She's not in a motel. She's on a $60 million jet headed to Paris with a man worth 10 times what I am. Wait, Jessica laughed nervously. So she found a sugar daddy? Good riddance, right? Now we don't have to pay alimony. You don't understand, Tracy roared, making Jessica jump. Sebastien Laurent isn't a sugar daddy. He's a fortress. If she's with him, I can't touch her. I can't starve her out. I can't bully her. And then, the second realization hit him. My son, Tracy breathed. She has my son. He grabbed his phone and dialed his lawyer. Start the divorce proceedings, Tracy barked, and get an emergency custody order. Kidnapping. She kidnapped my unborn child across international lines. Tracy, the lawyer sighed. If she's in France, and if she's with Laurent, this isn't going to be a local court matter. France protects mothers. And Laurent has the best legal team in Europe. You just kicked her out of the marital home while pregnant. That's abandonment. If we go to war, you're going to look like the monster. I don't care how I look, Tracy screamed, throwing a crystal vase across the room. It shattered against the wall, shards raining down on the spot where Maddie used to sit and read. I want her destroyed. I want her crawling back. But as he looked at the shattered glass, deep down, Tracy knew. The bet was lost. She wasn't crawling. She was flying. The Laurent estate in Neuilly-sur-Seine was not just a home. It was a statement. Hidden behind 12-foot limestone walls topped with wrought iron and surveillance cameras, the 19th-century mansion sat amidst manicured gardens that seemed to defy the chaos of the outside world. For the first week, Maddie didn't leave the grounds. She didn't want to. The trauma of that night in Seattle, the rain, the eviction, the cold calculation in Tracy's eyes, had settled into her bones like a low-grade fever. She slept for 12 hours a day, catching up on months of sleep lost to Tracy's schedule and her own anxiety. When she wasn't sleeping, she walked the gardens. Sebastien had given her the run of the place. He was gone during the days, managing the European arm of Laurent Shipping from his office in La Défense. But he returned every evening at 6 p.m. sharp. It was a stark contrast to Tracy, who would often disappear for days, claiming deal-making. Kept him away, only to return smelling of expensive perfume and lies. One Tuesday afternoon, Maddie sat in the solarium, sketching. It was the first time she had picked up a pencil in 2 years. Tracy had told her art was a waste of time that didn't generate revenue. But here, with the winter sun filtering through the glass and the scent of jasmine in the air, her hand found its old rhythm. Madame? Maddie looked up. It was Henri, the estate's major domo, a man of 60, with impeccable posture and a grandfatherly warmth. Yes, Henri. Monsieur Laurent called. He is bringing a guest for dinner. He asked if you felt up to joining them, or if you would prefer to dine in your suite. He emphasized there is no pressure. Maddie hesitated. She felt heavy, ungainly. Her belly was prominent now, her ankles swollen. "Who is the guest?" "A solicitor. Monsieur Arthur Sterling." "No relation to your husband." Maddie stiffened. "A lawyer." "I'll join them," she said, closing her sketchbook. "If Sebastian thinks it's important, I'll be there." That evening, dinner was served in the private library rather than the formal dining hall. A fire crackled in the hearth. Sebastian stood when Maddie entered, wearing a navy sweater that made his grey eyes look blue. He walked over and offered her his arm to help her to the chair. "You look rested," he said, his voice low. "I feel human again," she admitted. "Maddie, this is Arthur Sterling. He is the top family law barrister in London, but he is licensed to practice here in France and in the States. He is a shark, but he is our shark." Arthur was a small, sharp man with wire-rimmed glasses and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes until he looked at Sebastian. There was respect there. "Mrs. Sterling," Arthur said. "Or may I call you Madeline?" "Madeline is fine." "Madeline, Sebastian has briefed me on the situation. We have a few problems and we have a few advantages. I believe in ripping the bandage off quickly." Maddie put a hand on her stomach. "Tell me." "Tracy has filed for divorce in Washington State," Arthur said, pulling a file from his briefcase. "He is citing abandonment and infidelity." Maddie gasped. "Infidelity? I never—" "We know," Sebastian interrupted, his hand covering hers on the table. His grip was warm and firm. "It's a tactic. He wants to control the narrative. If he paints you as the cheater who ran off with a billionaire, he garners public sympathy and protects his stock price. He is also," Arthur continued, "seeking an emergency injunction to force you to return to the United States for the birth. He claims you are endangering the heir to the Sterling estate by fleeing the country." "Endangering?" Maddie laughed, a brittle sound. "He kicked me out. I have the text messages." "Which are excellent evidence," Arthur nodded. "But Tracy is powerful. He has friends in the judiciary. However, he made a critical error." "What?" "He underestimated Sebastian," Arthur said dryly. "And he underestimated French law." Arthur opened the folder. "France has strict laws regarding privacy and the protection of pregnant women. By establishing your residence here, which Sebastian has done by adding you to the household staff registry as a consultant for the past week, retroactively, we have placed you under French jurisdiction. The Washington courts can scream all they want, but France will not extradite a pregnant woman who has medical documentation of stress-induced hypertension caused by the father." Maddie looked at Sebastian. "You hired me." "I told you." Sebastian smirked, taking a sip of wine. "I always liked your branding work. You're consulting on the rebrand of the Laurent Charity Foundation. The salary is substantial. It also gives you your own visa." Maddie felt a lump in her throat. Tracy had erased her career. Sebastian had just given it back to her as a shield. "So I don't have to go back?" "No," Arthur said firmly. "You stay here. You have the baby here. And once the child is born on French soil, with a mother residing in France, well, Tracy will have to come to us. And he will find the French courts far less susceptible to his tech bro charm than the ones in Seattle." The relief was so profound, Maddie almost wept into her soup. Later that night, after Arthur had left, Maddie found Sebastian on the balcony, smoking a rare cigarette. "You saved my life," she said, stepping into the cool night air. Sebastian crushed the cigarette out immediately. "I didn't save you, Maddie. I just opened the door. You walked through it." "Why?" she asked again. "Tracy is going to come for you too. He'll attack your business. He'll attack your reputation." Sebastian turned to her. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her jaw. "Let him try," Sebastian whispered. "I have everything I want right here within these walls. The rest of the world can burn for all I care." For the first time in 5 years, Maddie didn't feel like an accessory. She felt like a priority. But the peace of the fortress was about to be tested. 3 months passed. The winter thawed into a crisp, blossoming Parisian spring. Maddie was 8 months pregnant. She had grown huge, her belly a drum tight against her dresses. She had also grown strong. With Sebastian's encouragement, she had actually started working on the foundation's branding. It gave her focus. She wasn't just waiting to give birth. She was creating. They fell into a domestic rhythm that was terrifyingly comfortable. Breakfast together, work, dinner, long conversations by the fire. They never slept in the same bed. Sebastian was a gentleman of the old school. He never pushed. He waited. But the tension between them was growing, a magnetic pull that was becoming harder to ignore. Then, the bomb dropped. It was a Tuesday morning. Maddie was eating a croissant when her phone, the new one Sebastian had given her, exploded with notifications. She opened Google News. Her face went pale. Headline: Tech mogul Tracy Sterling breaks. Silence. The Billionaire. Playboy stole my wife and unborn son. There was a video interview. Tracy, looking haggard and heartbroken, a look Maddie knew took him an hour in front of a mirror to perfect, was sitting on the set of a major morning talk show. "I just want my son back," Tracy was saying to the camera, wiping a fake tear. "She's fragile. She's not well mentally. And this man, this Laurent, he's using his money to keep a father from his child. It's kidnapping, plain and simple." The interview went viral instantly. The internet, toxic as always, took sides. Half of them called Maddie a gold digger. The other half called Tracy a hero. "He's calling me crazy," Maddie whispered, her hands shaking. "He's setting the stage to take the baby on grounds of mental incompetence." Sebastian walked into the room. He had already seen it. His face was a mask of icy fury. "Don't read the comments," he commanded, taking the tablet from her. "He's winning the public, Sebastian. If the public turns on us, the politicians might feel pressure to intervene." "He is flailing," Sebastian said. "He is a man shouting at a hurricane. But he has made a mistake." "What?" "He slandered me," Sebastian said calmly. "And he slandered you. In Europe, libel laws are not like in America. You have to prove what you say is true. He just accused me of kidnapping on international television." Sebastian pulled out his phone and dialed. "Arthur? Proceed with the defamation suit. File it in London and Paris. I want his assets in Europe, frozen pending the judgment. Yes, all of them." He hung up and looked at Maddie. "Stress is bad for the baby. Stop looking at the screen. Look at me." Maddie looked at him. He was her rock. "I'm scared, Sebastian. What if he comes here? The gates are locked. The guards are armed. He doesn't get in." But biology doesn't care about security gates. That night, the stress took its toll. Maddie woke up at 3 a.m. with a pain that tore through her lower back like a serrated knife. She cried out. Sebastian was in her room in 10 seconds. He must have been sleeping lightly. "Maddie, it's time," she gasped, clutching the sheets. "It's too early. I'm only 34 weeks." "It's okay," Sebastian said, his voice instantly shifting into command mode. "The car is ready. Dr. Dubois is on standby at the American hospital." He didn't call a servant. He scooped her up in his arms, carrying her down the grand staircase himself. Maddie buried her face in his neck, breathing in his scent, trying to focus on anything but the pain. The drive to the American Hospital of Paris was a blur of lights and pain. Sebastian held her hand the entire way, whispering French endearments that she didn't understand but felt in her soul. Courage, ma belle. Tu es forte. At the hospital, chaos erupted. Doctors, nurses, monitors beeping. Maddie's blood pressure was dangerously high. Preeclampsia, triggered by the stress of the scandal. We have to operate, Dr. Dubois said, looking grim. The baby is in distress. Do whatever you have to do, Sebastian said, his face pale. Save them both. Who are you? The nurse asked, holding a clipboard. Are you the father? The room went silent for a split second. Maddie looked at Sebastian, the man who had flown her halfway across the world, the man who had protected her when her own husband treated her like trash. Yes, Maddie whispered, gripping his hand. He's the father. It was a lie for the paperwork, but a truth of the heart. Sebastian squeezed her hand, his eyes shining. I'm here. They wheeled her into the OR. The anesthesia took hold. The last thing Maddie heard was the sound of a baby crying, a strong, lusty cry that defied the odds. Maddie woke up in a private recovery suite. The room was filled with white roses, Sebastian's favorite. She felt empty, light, and sore. Panic flared. The baby? He is perfect, a voice said from the corner. Sebastian was sitting in a chair, holding a small bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. He looked exhausted, his dress shirt rumpled, sleeves rolled up. He looked like a man who had been to war and won. He stood and brought the bundle to her. Maddie looked down. Her son. He was tiny, premature but strong. He had dark hair, like hers. He weighs 5 pounds, 6 ounces, Sebastian said softly. He has your chin. And Tracy's eyes? Maddie asked fearfully. No, Sebastian said, looking at the baby. He has his own eyes. He is his own person. Leo, Maddie whispered. I want to call him Leo, because he's going to have to be a lion to survive this family. Leo, Sebastian tested the name. Leo Lauren Sterling. It has a ring to it. Lauren, Maddie looked at him. It will offer him more protection, Sebastian said, if you allow it. Before she could answer, the door to the suite banged open. Maddie flinched, clutching the baby. It wasn't a nurse. Standing in the doorway, wearing a wrinkled suit and looking like a man on the edge of a breakdown, was Tracy Sterling. Behind him were 2 French police officers and a bewildered hospital administrator. There she is, Tracy shouted, pointing a finger at Maddie. And that's my son! That's my property! The word hung in the air. Property. Sebastian handed the baby gently to Maddie. Then he turned. He didn't yell. He didn't posture. He simply walked toward Tracy, closing the distance until he was inches from the other man's face. Sebastian was 3 inches taller, and while Tracy was gym-fit, Sebastian was built like a dock worker beneath his suit. Get out, Sebastian said. The volume was low, but the tone was terrifying. I have a court order. Tracy waved a piece of paper. Washington State Supreme Court. Custody is mine, pending a DNA test. I'm taking him. Now. Tracy moved to step around Sebastian. Sebastian put a hand on Tracy's chest. It wasn't a shove. It was a wall. You are in France, Tracy, Sebastian said. Your piece of paper is toilet tissue here. Officers, Tracy screamed at the French policeman. Arrest this man. He's kidnapping my child. The older police officer stepped forward. He looked at Tracy, then at Sebastian. He tipped his hat to Sebastian. Monsieur Laurent, the officer said politely. Is this man disturbing the peace? He is, Sebastian nodded. He is trespassing in a private room and threatening a recovering patient. I am the father, Tracy shrieked. According to the hospital intake forms, the officer said, looking at his notepad, The father is Monsieur Sebastien Laurent. Tracy froze. His face went purple. What? That's a lie. That's fraud. I demand a DNA test. You can demand whatever you like, Sebastien said, his voice cold steel. From your cell. You just violated a restraining order I filed 2 hours ago. Restraining order? I just got here. My lawyers are very efficient. Sebastien smiled, a shark's smile. Officers, please remove this garbage from my fiancé's room. Fiancé? Maddie's head spun. Tracy lunged. He swung a wild punch at Sebastien. It was the mistake everyone had been waiting for. Sebastien sidestepped the punch with the grace of a boxer, caught Tracy's arm, and twisted it behind his back, slamming him face first into the doorframe. That, Sebastien whispered into Tracy's ear as the police swarmed in to cuff him, was assault. In France, that's prison time. Enjoy la santé, Tracy. I hear the food is terrible. As they dragged a screaming Tracy Sterling down the hallway. She'll crawl back, you hear me? She's nothing without me. Sebastien straightened his cuffs. He turned back to Maddie. The violence vanished from his eyes, replaced by concern. I'm sorry you had to see that, he said. Maddie looked at the man who had just dismantled her nightmares with his bare hands and a legal loophole. She looked down at Leo, who was sleeping soundly through the commotion. Fiancé? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Sebastien paused. He walked over to the bed and sat on the edge. He took her hand. A necessary legal fiction for the police, he said. Then he paused. Unless... The air in the room changed. It wasn't about safety anymore. It was about them. Unless... Maddie breathed. Unless you want it to be real, Sebastien said, his vulnerability returning. I didn't bring you to Paris to hide you, Maddie. I brought you to Paris because I love you. I have loved you since the day you spilled that milkshake on my dashboard in the Hamptons. I watched you be unhappy for 5 years, and I hated myself for not fighting harder back then. I'm done not fighting. Maddie looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the years of longing, the instant devotion to a child that wasn't his, the respect he showed her talent and her mind. She realized she hadn't just escaped a cage. She had found a home. Ask me for real, she whispered. Sebastien smiled. He slid the signet ring off his pinky finger. Madeleine, he said, will you marry me? Will you let me be the father Leo deserves? Maddie looked at the ring, then at Leo, then at Sebastien. Yes, she said. Yes. 2 years later. The charity gala for the Laurent Sterling Foundation was the event of the Parisian social calendar. It was held at the Palais Garnier, the opera house, dripping in gold leaf and velvet. The paparazzi lined the red carpet 6 deep, shouting names. But they were only waiting for 2 names. A sleek black Maybach pulled up. The door opened, and Sebastien Laurent stepped out. He looked distinguished in a tuxedo, but his eyes were fixed solely on the woman he was helping out of the car. Madeleine Laurent. She was unrecognizable from the woman who had stood shivering in the Seattle rain. Wearing a custom emerald silk gown that she had designed herself, she radiated a quiet, unshakable power. On her hip, she carried a toddler, Leo, now 2 years old, looking like a miniature Sebastian in a tiny tuxedo. The cameras flashed blindingly. Madeleine, over here! Is it true the foundation raised 50 million for single mothers this year? Madeleine smiled, waving. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like a queen who had conquered her kingdom. Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, in a cramped apartment in Bellevue, Washington, Tracy Sterling sat in the dark. His downfall had been slow, agonizing, and public. The assault charge in France had been settled with a plea deal, a massive fine, and a suspended sentence, provided he never entered the European Union again. But the real damage happened back home. During the custody battle, which Tracy lost decisively due to the assault footage, Sebastian's lawyers had unleashed the nuclear option. They subpoenaed Tracy's text messages from the night of the breakup. The text about the bet, betting she's back, begging at the lobby desk within 4 hours. Who's in? Was leaked to the New York Times. The backlash was immediate. The tech feminist persona Tracy had cultivated crumbled overnight. Investors pulled out. The board of directors, terrified of the PR nightmare, voted to oust him from his own company. Jessica, the marketing director, had left him the day the stock price tanked, taking her gym equipment and his favorite watch with her. Now, Tracy was scrolling through Instagram on a cracked phone screen. He saw the live stream of the gala. He saw Sebastian whispering something into Maddie's ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. A free, genuine laugh Tracy realized he hadn't heard in years. He saw his biological son, Leo, clinging to Sebastian's neck, calling the other man Papa. The doorbell rang. Tracy got up, stepping over pizza boxes. He opened the door. It was a process server. Again. Tracy Sterling. Yeah, you've been served. Lawsuit from the investors. Negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. Tracy took the papers. Get in line, he muttered. As he went to close the door, his phone buzzed. It was a notification from an old group chat, the one with his finance buddies, the ones he had made the bet with. They had kicked him out of the chat months ago, but someone had added him back just for a moment. A single message popped up from his former best friend. Hey Richie, just saw Maddie on the news. She looks great. Looks like you lost the 50 grand. Send it via Venmo? Tracy stared at the screen. The rage that used to fuel him was gone, replaced by a hollow, cold ache. He realized then that Maddie hadn't just left him. She had surpassed him. She hadn't crawled back. She had flown so high he couldn't even see her anymore. He looked around his empty, silent apartment. No wife, no son, no company, no legacy. He remembered his own words. She has nowhere else to go. He laughed, a dry, broken sound that echoed off the cheap drywall. No, he whispered to the empty room. I'm the one with nowhere to go. In Paris, the music swelled. Sebastian took Maddie's hand, leading her onto the dance floor. Are you happy? Sebastian asked, pulling her close. Maddie looked at her husband, then over at her son, playing with his grandmother nearby. She thought of the rain in Seattle, and she thought of the stars over the Atlantic. I'm not just happy, Sebastian, she smiled, resting her head on his chest. I'm free. And as they danced, the world watched, and Tracy Sterling turned off his phone, sitting alone in the dark, finally understanding the true cost of pride. And that is how the tables turned. Tracy Sterling thought he could break a woman by taking away her roof, but he forgot that a woman who builds a home in herself can survive any storm. He bet on her weakness, but fate bet on her strength, and fate always collects. Maddie didn't need to crawl back, because she learned she had wings the moment she let go of the weight dragging her down. If this story satisfied that itch for justice, make sure to hit that like button. It helps us bring more karma-filled sagas to you. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a twist. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Maddie? Would you have taken the money or walked away with your head held high? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.